in this tutorial we are going to be focusing on the French-inspired electro house sound that is very popular at the moment. So we're going to be referring to artists like Sweely and, well, Sweely's more recent stuff at least, and Oden Fatzo manipulate that sort of vibe. It's got a real 90s touch. And what I've done is I've built a loop which is based loosely on Sweely's Forbidden Fruit tune, so I use that as a reference. I built the synths that are quite similar to those in that tune, just so we could get an idea for how to create those synths entirely in the box. I've not used any hardware for this, but I'm going to show you exactly how you can achieve this sound. I'm going to go through all the processing. I'm going to show you the presets I've used. If I've used any samples, I'm going to show you exactly what packs they've come from, and we'll look at every single element, so that if you're looking to try and achieve this sound in your music, this is the tutorial you're going to need to watch. So let's have a listen to the project, let's dive in, and let's work out how it's put together. Okay, so here is the project that I've put together. So what we'll do first is we'll listen to the reference track that I used. And do you know what? So often I hear people tell me that, like, oh, this sound isn't achievable by just working in the box. You know, you need hardware. Someone said this to me about the Apollonia tutorial I did. I like the challenge of that, but I honestly, genuinely think that it's the way that VSTs are these days. You know, you can actually do so much without actually needing to buy any hardware, and this is a prime example of it. So let's listen to the reference track. So it's On Mind Helmet. It's by Sweely, and we'll just play a little bit of it so you can get a feel for it, and you'll see where the inspirations come from, and then I'll show you my the track that I made from this reference. So let's listen to this. So actually it's quite simple. The drums are pretty dry. Your standard drums, you've got quite a straight pattern with some closed hats and then just a simple open hat that's not too open actually. A 909 clap, just a nice round kick, and the synths, you've got some chords going on. You've got some stuttered trancey style synths. You know, in terms of like what's actually going on, there's no real magic there. So this is fully achievable in the box, and let me show you how I'd go about doing it. So this is my my version of this type of sound. So let's have a listen. Okay, so pretty close, I think, in terms of the sounds that I've used and processing, and I did it all by ear, so you know, I didn't stick to a key. But just to solo the elements, so let's just listen to the drums first of all. And then with the snares as well. Really simple stuff. It's at 133 BPM. So let's just have a listen to all the synths on their own for context. So. And then we've got these here. And then this one. So just really simple, but I've basically scanned through some presets. The synth I've used the most, which is a synth I'm using a lot at the moment, is the Blue 3. The chords I sort of use the tool for, which we'll look at. And then other than that, we've got this little layer here, which is just a loop. And then we've also, what tends to happen in a lot of Sweely stuff is these little sound effects like this. Just to fill the space out a little bit, because it is still quite minimal. Obviously, Minimal's productions have always been minimal. Sweely's productions have always been quite minimal, but they've obviously changed a lot over the last few years. But anyway, let's break down each of the elements so that you can see how I put it together. So we've got this kick, which is from a Sample Market Chris Stussy sample pack, just this one-shot kick, number 4 from that pack. I like the roundness of it. I've shortened the decay a little bit. I've also put an EQ on there just to take everything out from about 37 Hertz because there's not much bottom end in this tune. Then I've put a filter on it just to take out some of the tops. So if I just show you what, there's a bit of a click in there. It just sounds a bit tighter to me, that. And that's it. I've not put any other processing on the kick. It was a nicely processed kick in the first place. There's a couple of like double kicks in there. And then here. So what I've done is I've just drawn in like this little smiley face of like velocity in there, just to help fill the bars. And then here. So that's basically it in terms of the kick. It happens in the breakdown a bit on its own. So, you know, nothing special going on there at all. I have got this sidechain channel going on, which I'll explain in a moment, because that's being used to trigger a gate so that we can get these stuttered synths in there that are quite distinctive in terms of like this sort of style anyway. But so moving on to the drums then, I'll just talk about the processing on the drum group. All I've done is I've put a decapitator on there, just sort of glue it all together, a bit of saturation. So I'll start with the preset. The drum factor ones are really good. You'll see me use it all the time. I've used it for years. And then also I've just made sure that I've just tweaked the settings. You don't want to lose too much highs in your drums. What I have done in the closed hats, I've used Decimort. So basically, in terms of the processing on this then, we'll get to that in a sec, but let's just turn all the processing off. And then let's listen to what's going on in there. So I've got this from a Chris Stussy pack again, the Sample Market one. So this one, it's like an Electro-y sort of really short closed hat, which works well in this style. If it was just that, it would get quite boring after a while. So you want to add movement to it. So I used Timeless for a bit of delay. And I used like a vintage delay preset, which like adds a bit of modulation onto the delayed signal, which sounds quite interesting. I then put the Phase Mistress on it. And for that I used the Squeezy Stepper preset and just dialed it back a little bit. Again, adds movement. Then the Decimort, just adds some grit to it. Gives it that old school process feel which we're looking for. And then just a bit of EQ just to take out the bottom end. And that's it. I've sent it to a drum reverb, which has got like, it's quite pulled back in terms of the to put the drums in a space, but really dialed back so you can't even really tell unless you take it off. Then we've got this closed hat. You know, there's no processing on this at all. It's just, that's come from the Chris Dussy pack again. And then the clap again from the Chris Dussy pack. These have been sent to the same drum reverb a bit. What I have done at certain points though is I have done some automation at the end of bars. So this one here, it's a really good trick if you're going into a transition, you don't want to use like crashes or something like that. You can just automate the clap to have loads of reverb on it, send it to ascend like this, look, so. So in the context of everything else, it's quite subtle, but. Just simple little tricks like that, that Sweely uses quite a lot. Then we've got these snares. Just a little random snare pattern, really. Just slightly different changes in velocity. Little snare rolls at the end of the bars. And that snare has come from the Fabe Sample Market sample pack, just the one shots. The Sample Market ones are really good because they're really clean samples and that sort of thing. We've then got this little sound effect here. So it's subtle. But you could potentially pull that up a little bit more in the mix. So I sent it to a rather big reverb send here, which I boosted the signal off. It's a trick that I use to set things back in the mix. But yeah, I mean, that's come from a, I'm not quite sure where that's come from actually. Let's not Google it. Let's search my library for it. So I'll put in My House Vox. So yeah, I'm not quite sure where that's come from. Sample Magic Deep Analog House. Yeah, it's within there. It's part of one of the kits in there. So just a little vocal layer. You can find vocals anywhere. You just take them out of sample packs. You can get them on YouTube. You know, there's no limits as to where you can find vocals. Take them out of films or whatever. Then I've got this little vocal stutter here. So this is a good time to talk about this gate. So I've got this channel, which just has a snare on it, and it's constantly running. And it's then I've used the sidechain and I've received audio from that channel, and it creates this gated effect like this. So I'll turn that off. That's just a little vocal loop that I've got from a Smoker's Relight sample pack, which is just like a vocal sample really. But just to sort of get it to stutter and roll with the tune and the groove, I've added a gate to it. Just dry though than that. So it sort of just sits underneath everything and adds an extra texture. Then the bass line, here we go. So there's 3 notes. I mean, you could have potentially even gone that and done a little phrase like. So that it would get, but it just kept it simple. But yeah, just kept it simple for this one. But I mean, if you look at the way that sort of Sweely's bass lines are programmed, there's lots of little notes like almost like stuttering, and that adds to the groove to it. So. And then everything else is sort of talking to each other underneath it, like these synths here. So you've got that call and response, which is obviously what we're always looking to achieve. So yeah, that's the bass line. In terms of how I put that together, I used a Blue 2. If you go in the analog bass presets, there's first one. There's lots of really nice bass sounds in here. This is just called Airs Bass, and I pulled the frequency up a little bit to open it out with the filter, because when the preset was loaded up, it was a lot more closed. So I just wanted it to cut through in the mix a little bit better.
And then I've just done a bit of EQ. I tend to roll off the sub from my basses from about 30 Hz these days, just because I find that it just gets rid of that unwanted rumble that sort of kicks around those sorts of frequencies that you might not necessarily want. And then I've used the track spacer to sidechain it with a kick. That's set at about 17, 50, between 15 and 20%. And then I've just rolled out the tops here. So just means there's no farting in the bottom end where things are just fighting for the same frequencies. Then we've got these main chords. So I'll show you the automation as well. There's just an auto filter on there that's just sweeping through for a bit of movement. So obviously they're chords, but essentially there's just D, F and G. Putting that together. I didn't use any scalers for this at all, but what I did do, I had the random chords generator, and I just chose the major key pattern because this tune I wanted to be in a major key because it's like Happy, the original tune I believe is in a major key. And yeah, so that's just following just a major chord. You know what I mean? There's nothing special going on at all. What I did with this though was if you go into the Blue and you go to the effects, I dialed back on the reverb a little bit. And I also played with the ADSR to bring the release in. But this is just a preset in the synth sound one. It's called Blue Guitar. It's like a guitar preset, but then with the filter on it and a bit of micro shifter where I used the fat wide pads preset because it's almost like a pad. It just pushes it out into the sides, gives it more stereo. It just sounded just like the original. So that's that, and then I did a copy of that where I just filtered it. It's just the same preset and stuff, but filtered. And then this sound here. So this I used the Monopoly for, and I used a preset in there called Precambrian in the synth soft preset. So I was looking for a soft synth just to sit underneath and be like an extra little layer or an extra little response to the other stuff. Then what I did, I recorded that in using the Juno as a MIDI controller, and I did a bit of pitch bend in there. So if we open up the clip, we should be able to see some pitch bend in here. We go to the envelopes, MIDI control, there we go. So that was just done in manually, so when I was playing it in I just did so. So it's nice to just add a little bit of pitch bend as you're playing it. I think with the Sweely stuff, he's a very good keys player, and he's got a lot of he's skilled with the way that he plays things in. So I think if you're looking for that sound, maybe just practice just a few different extra rhythms, or get familiar with a bit more music theory, or just get a little bit playful with it. Really, obviously you can quantize and correct things afterwards, but I think little pitch bends and little flicks like that and flair here and there to give it the groovy sort of Sweely feel is what we're going for. I mean, I've not really done it much justice there. I'm not a huge keys player, but just little bits like that. Sort of. Processing wise, I put the micro shifter on it, a bit of EQ to take out the bass, and I boosted some of these sort of high mids just to give it a little bit more presence. And then there's a response to that later in the tune. Again, loads of little tiny little stuttered notes, smaller notes in there. Stuck the H delay on it with the default preset. I use this preset all the time. It's the best delay sound I've ever used, and I love it. So I pulled it back a little bit, but so it's like the call and response here. So you've got the question, and then that's the answer. And yeah, just micro shifter again. I love using micro shifter. It really brings the synths out in your mix. This we've been through already. That's not being used. This here is the sort of let's get it open. Again, loads of little. I've just pressed loads of little notes and then quantized them afterwards, and it just got this really nice stuttered effect. And a micro shifter on it again. That's not being used. And then this is a sequence sound preset's called 1980 in blue. The sounds in blue for this sort of style is unreal, really. And then just playing with the filter, like just drawing in little bits of filter automation. Send it to this reverb loads. Yeah, so there you go. And then this thing here is just an effect with some micro shift and send it to reverb. It's from the effects presets, Berliner Schule. That's my German accent. And then again, it's a really small effect from blue. And what we got here. Okay, so if I take all of this processing off, starting with the filter, and the gate, the delay, the phase mistress, the erosion, and the micro shift, you'll hear just a held note on a preset from blue called, it's the blue guitar again, but it's not a chord this time. So I'm just holding a note. So if we add the filter on, we've got a little bit of automation going on with the filter, like, and that's a band pass just sweeping through the frequencies a little bit. Then we've got the gate. So that's receiving the side chain from that snare channel like we looked at earlier. Bit of delay. Then we've got the phase mistress on there, which is using the anti-phase preset. Hold back a little bit. Sounds nice. Bit of erosion to bring some character to it. Micro shifter. Send it to the reverb. And that's all the synths. So they're just sort of talking to each other and they're just playing different little bits and bobs. There's no rules to it. Just get in there and have a little play and just use your ears and just, you know, if it sounds right, it sounds right. Then we've got this synth here. So that's come from the Best Service XXL Production Effects pack. And what I did was put it in the beats and then change preserve to 16th notes. And then chose this, hold it down. And it just stutters it, and then took a load of the low end out, sent it to this reverb, and then we've got this from the same pack. This has got a bit of delay on it and some EQ just to take out that bottom end that we don't want. And then we've got this, which is from the same pack again, a little one shot, but that works nice here when the kicks drop out. Nice little effect. Then we've got this one. Again, some delay on there. Set it to the... Oh, I haven't even sent that to the reverb. It's just delay and a bit of EQ. And then this. Some delay on it as well. I mean, you could send that to the reverb. Sounds even fuller. This here. That's come from the Fabe Sample Market sample pack, but I've just warped it slightly differently. Sent that to the reverb and a bit of delay send as well. Oh no, just the Pro R as well. And then just a riser from a UK Garage sample pack. Loop Masters Modern UK Garage and Bass. And that's sent to reverb. So there's really not much more to say on this other than arrangement wise, you want little synths talking to each other, stutter effects, making them sound full and sticking reverb and delay on them, and just trying to get effects to fill things out in the space and just little transitions, but just keeping it simple. So yeah, hopefully that's useful. If you've got any further questions on this particular sound or you'd like me to cover a particular sound, please let me know on the Discord. Nice one.